Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into another podcast episode of What Else is Going On, aka We Go Podcast. I'm your girl, your host, Taria. You can listen to the audio version of the podcast wherever it is you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all those things. And you can watch the visual, of course, on YouTube. If you're over here watching me, thank you so much. Please also make your way over to the audio part again, wherever it is you listen to your podcast and follow the podcast there. Rate, if you will, give me a 5 star if you want. And then if you are listening, if you could just make your way over to YouTube, WEIGO podcast and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. Um, for all of those who celebrate tomorrow, happy Thanksgiving. If you don't celebrate, but you're just off, please enjoy your time off to relax, relate, release, in the words of our girl, the Whitley Gilbert. Let's go ahead and jump right on into this episode. So, a sobering separation. So, y'all, we jump right back into where they left off. Kyle and Dorit going back and forth. Let me tell you, I loved the back and forth last week, and I loved it even more this week. So Kyle is saying to Dorit, I'm going to need you to listen now, okay? And Dorit says, let's be very honest. Let's actually really talk about real stuff. So that's what they were saying last time with Kyle saying, Kyle saying, if you're going to be aggressive and not be open, then basically we're not going to talk. Kyle says, I'm having this conversation because I hope to get to the other side of it. You literally don't even act like yourself right now. What's going on with you? Dorit said, I'm not going to put up with your ish anymore, Kyle. I'm not. Kyle says, we both have a lot of different feelings and thoughts of what happened, and we both have our sides. Dorit says, our history counts, Kyle. That's why when you went publicly and said that I exaggerated our friendship, of course, they showed the flashback back to the Amazon 2023 live where Kyle says Dorit basically exaggerated some things. Dorit was saying that really hurt her. In her confessional, Dorit says, we have so many memories, so many intimate moments. It felt like she took 8 years of a deep sisterly friendship and flushed it down the toilet. Kyle says to Dorit, okay, can I tell you why I said that? Dorit says, tell me why. Kyle brings up the whole BravoCon thing where they say rate the Richard sisters. We all know. And for those of you that don't know, at BravoCon last year, they asked the shady question, Dorit, rank your favorite Richard sisters. Dorit pretended like she was going to pick up and take a shot. Kyle like playfully hits it, but spills it on her. And so Dorit goes, oh, well, now Kyle's obviously last, Kathy's first, in a joking way because Kyle made her spill it. It was clearly a joke. Kyle was actually falling out laughing. Like it looked like real laughter. That's what they're talking about. It was a joke. Kyle says, you look at me and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know. Dorit said it was a joke. It was tongue in cheek. Kyle said, you said that. So Dorit says, Kyle. So Kyle says that really hurt her feelings, y'all. That really hurt her. Dorit said it was a joke, something that you and I used to do a lot of. Kyle says, I was very emotional that whole time. You know what was going on. I had shared things with you. And then I started crying when I was asked about it. They flash back again to BravoCon where someone brought up the separation and she teared up a little bit. Kyle tells Dorit, and later you said to certain people that I turned the tears on for attention. Y'all, what took me out is the whole time Kyle has now turned it on her and her feelings. Like Dorit was saying, it was a joke. We always used to joke. Well, you know what I was going through. So basically, in other words, you know what I was going through, something sensitive. So it's got to be about me. Like, we're not joking. Child, the old Dorit would have been like, I'm sorry, Kyle. I didn't know. Child, Dorit looked at her and smirked and started shaking her head, smiling. Kyle looked like, okay, this is not part of the play. Kyle says, why are you smiling like that's not true? Dorit said, because it's exactly what I expected. You think I'm sorry. Dorit said, you think I'm some effing idiot. That is absolutely not why you went on Amazon Live and said that. You know what I think, Kyle? You're mad because I said something on Watch What Happens Live that wasn't even a big deal. And I think it's interesting, side note, that they're referencing Watch What Happens Live and Andy now in the shows because they weren't able to do that before. Andy asked so Dorit says, Andy asked, how was your relation? How Has your relationship been affected by Kyle and Morgan's relationship? They flash back to that Watch What Happens Live and Dorit's answer, which was, I feel like the closer she got with Morgan, the further she got for me. So Andy says, wow. And Dorit says, I'm sorry, Kyle. I love you, but it's the truth. That's how I feel. Um, Dorit says, I said that. God forbid the worst thing in the world. And then you decided, now I'm going to show her. Y'all, when I tell you Kyle was looking wide-eyed, like I almost felt like, is she looking at production? Like, this is not how we discussed it. This is my show. This is not how it's supposed to go. Because she was shocked. In her confessional, Dorit says, if Kyle could just be honest and tell me that really pissed her off, it got her in trouble with Morgan, it caused all kinds of issues, and just tell me she was upset about that, we could have an honest conversation and move on. Back in the scene, Sutton was looking over and says, wow, there's a lot of pointing at the table. Jennifer Tilly says they are very fired up. Sutton says, yes, and Dorit has nails like yours. Jennifer says, uh-huh. So Dorit is telling Kyle, you isolated me. You didn't speak to me for months. Why not just come to me and say, Dorit, I'm mad at you for this. Dorit, I'm upset with you for this. Y'all, this right here is when, even if I had a little bit for Kyle, I lost it. You're giving all these excuses about why you're upset with Dorit. And one would think you had even tried to talk to her about it with the way that Kyle is carrying on, like, Dorit hurt me, Dorit hurt me. But no. Dorit says, why didn't you talk to me about this? And Kyle says, I didn't have it in me. I said, so you're treating me based on something you're saying that I did to you, and I don't even know that I did it to you or that it hurt you. That's like my husband saying something to me like, what are you cooking for dinner? Or you need to get dinner. And I'm pissed off because I feel like, why should I need to get dinner? But like never say anything to him, but just treat him as if I did say something to him and he just ignored it. Like, what? I brought up dinner, y'all, because some of y'all know, like I mentioned, we can never decide what's for dinner. But anyway, Kyle says I didn't have it in me. Dorit says, no, you were cold. I said, boom. When she said I didn't have it in me, again, Kyle thought Dorit was going to pet her up. That's the word my grandma used to use. Pet her up and say, oh, I'm sorry. But Dorit said, no, you were cold. You were distant. When I tell you Kyle's mouth drop, if y'all are watching like this, you know the face that Kyle makes. Child, Kyle couldn't believe it. Kyle says, I was struggling, Dorit. Dorit says, it doesn't mean just because you're struggling, you can treat me like ish. I said, come on, Dorit. Kyle's next defense, instead of addressing that and saying, you know what, you're right, I should have told you, you pissed me off. She says, I've been a good effing friend. She said, I've been a good effing friend. I don't care what you say. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. That's what she says to Dorit. And I'm thinking, and Kyle, just because you say Dorit did all this doesn't make it true that she intentionally hurt you, right? It works both ways. So then Kyle says so Dorit says a real effing friend, when they're mad, they tell their friend they're mad. I said, Dorit is, and I ain't never been really too much on Dorit's side since like some of the things in her first season, child. Dorit says they try to work through it. Kyle says, it's the last 2 years. It's been the hardest 2 years of my life. Can you give me a little effing grace? So you're upset with me because you feel like I treated you a certain way, or because I said something that upset you, or because I didn't say something correct when you were arguing with your sister. You don't tell me. I don't know. You just ghost me. And now when I call you on it, you say, I've had the worst 2 years. Can you give me some grace? And I know it sounds like I'm really coming down on Kyle, but I am actually, because to me, if that was anyone, think about that in your life. Somebody in your life that you think and you close with has ghosted you, has been distant. And now all of a sudden they come back like you did X, Y, and Z. And you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? You were so busy denying the closeness of our relationship. And they were like, because the last 2 years of my life was hard. If what you were dealing with was that bad, then how is what I said affecting you so deeply and you not being able to tell me? You know what I'm saying? It would be like, I didn't even think about her right now. Or if she reached out to you, girl, I can't talk to you about this right now. But I just still don't buy that because you found time to give her all these excuses. Anyway, when Kyle says, "Can you give me a little effing grace?" Dorit says, "I think I did. I did a little bit too much. And when you get to the point that you can go publicly and say that I exaggerate our friendship, grace time is over. Grace time is over." As Dorit was saying that as she's holding that disc sitting on her forehead, sitting on her head. Kyle gets up and walks away, but Kyle had to take a sip of water first. I said, "Ooh, Dorit really had Kyle like rattled, and Kyle had to get a sip of water up before she got up." So Dorit says, "I so effing expected that." In her confessional, Kyle says, "I've been a bad friend, and you just decide to say this now because I'm mad at you. How convenient. No, you hurt me, and now you have to create something to justify your behavior. This is not a friendship." One could say, "Kyle, you've been mad all this time, and now you decide to say something when cameras are up." Just saying. Um, Garcelle goes out after Kyle, and Kyle and says to Kyle, "Are you okay?" Kyle says it's impossible to talk to her. Garcelle says, "Well, I know that, but what happened?" Kyle says, "I actually never seen her like that. I've never seen her like that. I feel like I was talking to an imposter." Garcelle says, "Wow." Back in the party, Dorit says, "I'm going to get going." Erica walks over and says, "What happened?" Dorit said, "Remember what I told you in order for it to work out, that I need to be able to have an honest, real conversation?" Erica says, "Yeah." Dorit says, "Well, that is not what I got." Erica says, "What did you get?" By this time, Bose has walked. I was calling her Boz last episode, but it's Bose. That's how Bose walks over to join them. Dorit says, "I got a load of BS. I'm tired of it, Erica." Erica is looking shocked. In her confessional, Dorit says, "I feel fed up. I'm fed up with the friendship. I'm fed up with the marriage. And I'm fed up with having felt the way I felt." I said, well, she threw marriage in there. I said, okay, she is not happy. She said, "And I'm not going to keep my mouth shut about it because at the end of the day, I don't give a F." They all say goodnight. And as Erica is walking out with Dorit, she says Boz says to them, "I'm going to go back and drink some tequila." Erica said she enjoyed talking to her and she can't wait till they can talk some more. Back in her confessional, Dorit says, "I need to have a voice. I'm no longer that girl you've seen the last 2 years. I'm bigger, better, and stronger than ever." And then she sticks up the middle finger. I think she could have left it at, "I don't give a F. I'm bigger, better, stronger than ever." The middle finger was kind of like, but that's how she feels. Um, they're walking out of the party, and Dorit is saying to Erica, "Oh Lord, I cannot wait to take this dress." And Erica says, "And throw it in the trash." Dorit says, "Done." In the meantime, Kyle's still standing out there with them antlers waiting. Erica says, "Throw that throw that dress in the trash." And Dorit says, "Done." I don't know if she said it once and they played it twice, but it was funny. Bose is talking to Sutton back in the party and says, "I got to say, I had a good connection with Dorit today, and she seemed pretty upset when she was about to leave." Charles Sutton starts looking around like, "Wait." Sutton says, "Hang on, they were over there." Bose says, "No, they're both gone, girl. I did talk to Dorit." So they show Dorit outside and her ride is pulling up. So Erica says goodnight to Kyle, and Kyle says goodnight. Dorit turns around and smiles and then shakes her head. As Kyle's getting into her car, she said, "This is the weirdest effing party I've ever been to in my life." So next, we see Bose arrive at her badass workshop. That's what it's called. She looked fabulous. And when I tell you she had the beautiful entourage of beautiful Black people walking with her, her daughter was one of them. I said, come on. In her confessional, she says, "My name is Bozema." And I hope I'm saying this right. So if I'm not, y'all, please forgive me. I try to take my time and go back, and I wrote it. I took the notes phonetically to try to get it right. She says, because I know when people say all your names wrong, my name is Taria Shondell. And my maiden name was Walker. My married name is Faison. So both of my names, people would get them jacked up. But she's in her confessional, she says, "My name is Bozema Efiba Mamachi Author St. John, otherwise known as Bose. My name is Ghanaian." Did I say that? I know how to say it. Means goddess. So when you say my name, you're summoning all of my greatness. She goes on to her step and repeat. She said, "I have to bless it in Jesus' name." So she's taking pictures with some of the people that have come to the workshop. Back in her confessional, she says, "I've had a 25-year history in corporate America. I mean, I know I look young, but let me tell you something. I've been around the block 3 times. I said, look at her talking about my college years. I'm just playing, not 3 times. A woman tells her, I admire you so much. The only other person I admire more is Beyonce, and then they have a laugh. Back in her confessional, she says, Forbes named me #1 most influential CMO in the world. I've been on Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People. Ebony named me one of the most powerful executives in the world. And for those of y'all white folks that are listening, if you don't know, Ebony is a Black staple, a magazine in our community. Ebony is a magazine that's a staple in the Black community. We had Ebony, Essence. Y'all remember Jet, all of that. So Ebony is a big deal. She said, Ebony named me one of the most powerful executives in the world. I mean, I could go on. I love that. So she was also, oh, that's me, child, that's my note. But she says I can go on. And I said, I love that she was also on the cover of Black Enterprise. One of the young ladies that is taking a picture with her on the Step and Repeat asks, are you hiring? I said, come on and shoot your shot. She says, no, not right now, but you can give your information to my chief of staff, and points her chief of staff out. Back in her confessional, she says, well, since I have retired from corporate life, I've been busier than ever. I'm doing podcasts. All right, Bose, come on over here because I loves to interview the girls. So she said, I've been doing podcasts, workshops, advocacy. I thought retirement was putting my legs up. And then she says, no, that sounds terrible, and starts laughing. She said, that's a different kind of work. Girl, yes, it is. Then she says, okay, to the crowd, okay, who's ready for the badass workshop? And she comes out and they're all excited and she's dancing. In her confessional, she says, I started the badass workshop because everyone always asked me how to get to the corner office. If I had $1 for every time someone asked me that question, and she pauses and says, well, I am a millionaire, but I'd be even more so of a millionaire. Back in the conference, she says, so this session is called Pivoting to Your Greater Self. This pivot is deeply personal. It's personal because I have already done it. I was 10 years in at PepsiCo, and in January of that year, I had successfully negotiated a deal with the NFL to have the Super Bowl halftime show sponsored by PepsiCo. A few months later, we discovered that my husband had terminal cancer. In her confessional, she says, Peter Daniel St. John was my husband. I was looking for my Black Prince Charming, and then here comes the ginger-haired Italian background, gold chain wearing, no Black friends type of guy. Everything that could be different between us was, but it worked for us. Back in her workshop, she says, and 3 months later, he died. So remember the first episode, she tells Dorit they were separated at the 10-year mark, and they found out he had cancer. So I had said that I wanted to find out, did they get back together because he had cancer? Or were they separated, working their way back to each other? Then they find out he has cancer. And shout out to my girl, Shanika. She let me know on the first video that I did about episode 1 of this season that all of that was in Bose's book. So I said, oh, I was definitely going to check it out because Bose addresses that. And then hearing her say this really makes me want to check it out. So shout out to Shanika. I'm definitely going to check it out. Hold on one second, because I wanted to say with Shanika, by the way, check her out at Shanika, SHANIKA, Pichey. Am I saying it right, Shanika? PICHEY. She is a Black yoga expert, I'm going to say. And she also has a podcast talking about horror films. There's not a lot of Black folks that do that. So she does that. I've been on there twice. So check her out. Let me tell you, she talks about the deep breathing. And as I get older, her techniques, I remember like the breath work and all that. I've seen her post stuff on her Instagram. It really helps. And in the time we're in right now, we could all use it. So check out on Instagram, Shanika, SHANIKA, PICHEY. I just wanted to shout her out because, again, she told me about Bose's book, and now I want to read it. So back to Bose's workshop. So she talks about, they find out he has terminal cancer, and 3 months later he died. All these years later, I still can't find the words, really, to be honest with you. I can't describe what it felt like. Back in her confessional, she says one of the most difficult things about losing Peter is knowing that her daughter would be fatherless. She said they loved each other so much. He was robbed the chance to be a father, and her daughter was robbed of a chance to be loved by her father for the rest of her life. In her confessional, again, she said, my daughter was turning 4. Her and her daughter have a really special bond. She said that she believes the bond was born the day he died. But I mean, the bond was born because her dad died, because it's just the two of them. So they show her beautiful daughter, Lael, I believe is how you pronounce it, who's 15. She's attending the workshop, supporting her mom. So back at the workshop, Bose says, in February of the following year, 2014, I was up for review and I was sitting directly across from my boss, who then said to me, you haven't hit enough home runs in this job. She got them the NFL sponsorship, but okay. She said, I knew in that moment it was time for me to move on. So that trauma and that pivot is what has led me to this moment right here. In her confessional, she says, this is a new era in my life. The last ladder I climbed up in corporate America was built by other people. This new ladder is built by me, rung by rung. I said, Bose, you better preach. Back in her session, she says, the things that are happening in your life, they don't have to make you sit down. You can get up and do something. You are the actual pivot. And then a woman yells from the audience, I am the pivot. And Bose says, amen. And everyone is cheering and laughing. And for me, that really hit home because I've heard the word pivot. I'm sure we all had, right? It's not too late to pivot. During C19, people made pivots, and pivot had become the word to use to motivate people. Pivot, pivot, pivot. I've heard different CEOs and vice presidents of companies speak about pivoting. But she said, I am the pivot. When she said, you are the pivot, and the lady yelled out, I am the pivot, it really hit me. Like, we talk about making a pivot, making a pivot. I'm the pivot that can move. So I just thought, that was awesome. Hold on, you guys. Y'all will not believe the text I just got. Should I grab something for dinner from the hubby? Hold on. Y'all, I'm back. I told him I couldn't decide, and we can decide when my mom gets here, because my kids went to go meet my mom halfway between here and Jersey, because my dad's not coming up till tomorrow. So I said, maybe we can decide. Because I can't. I feel like I've been eating actual food. I need something light, a salad, a Subway sandwich, something. But anyway, so her saying you are the pivot, that definitely did something to me. Back in her confessional, Bose says, I no longer have to answer to anybody. Monday morning, I'm not worried about the email you're sending me. If I'm sending an email, it's to somebody who's doing something for me, not the other way around. That's the way I like it. Then back at her conference, she says, cheers to us. I said, come on, Bose, cheers. I'm with you. Kyle and Sutton are meeting up for lunch. Sutton says the last time she was there, because they met at a hotel for lunch, she says the last time she was there, she got Botox. Kyle said, at the hotel? Sutton said, yes, they were having the Oscar party there and the doctors did it for free. Can you tell? Kyle said, when was it? Sutton said, about a month ago. Yo, Kyle looked at her and said, oh. In her confessional, Sutton says, a lot got thrown at me last year, a lot of accusations that weren't true. They flash back to last season when Kyle does seem to be insinuating that Sutton may have a little bit of a drinking problem. Now, I'm just going to throw this down here. I listened to a podcast and they had reservations at the Polo Lounge. It's a place in New York that evidently you have to be on like a list or the reservations are hard to get. They were there with a person who has a Sirius XM show, a host. And they said that they met Sutton and she was drunk. Her and her friend. And that she was, I think I said this before, and that Sutton was loud. Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway, but hey, she ain't drinking and driving. So, I mean, that's a plus. So anyway, they show the flashbacks where Kyle was kind of insinuating that Sutton drinks too much. Back in Sutton's confessional, the producer says, why do you suddenly seem to trust Kyle again? And she said, who said I trusted her? I said, well, all right now. So back in the scene at the hotel, Sutton is telling Kyle, I love this bag so much. And Kyle says she got it in Saint Tropez, and a picture flashes on screen of her in Saint Tropez in 2022. And Sutton says, was that your last family vacation? Kyle says, I don't know. We did just all go to Stagecoach together and stayed at our house there. Sutton says, really? Kyle says, I mean, in different rooms, but yeah, we get along. Sutton says, for now. Kyle says, no, we're going to get along. Sutton says, I just think when it comes to money, people can be different. Kyle says, listen, I trust in that sense because everything we have is 50-50. Yes, of course, you know, the agency is also mine. Yo, when Sutton started laughing, I started laughing. Kyle says, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Sutton said, okay. Kyle says, first of all, he always says it. It's written in his book. If it was not for my wife, I would not have this. I would not have done this. Sutton rolls her eyes and says, in his book. Kyle says, he goes on interviews and says this. I'm not kidding. In Sutton's confessional, she says, I don't see the book being used as evidence in divorce court. Those forensic people are going to come in there and burn that book. Kyle says, we started with nothing. We built it together. So there's nothing. It's half and half, and that's it. Sutton says, well, I don't trust any of them. Back in her confessional, Sutton says, the lesson is very clear coming out of my marriage. Men do not like parting with their money. Sutton tells Kyle, I think, I'm going to be real honest with you. I think that you need to file. Kyle says, why? Sutton says, because if you go on to do something from the date of the filing, that's yours. I said, Sutton is thinking about the money, the business. Go ahead and file. And then if you do something, create a business, do whatever, it is yours because that's after the filing. So in her confessional, Kyle says, everyone's telling me you need to draw a line in the sand. You need to file for divorce. Who filed? Are you filing? Is he filing? Are you going to file? That's the stuff I really don't understand. Eventually, we'll figure it out. I said, at this point, I do think Kyle's kind of playing in our faces a little bit, sort of like Ashley Darby. Come on. In her confessional, Sutton says, Kyle needs to get a grip and go talk to an attorney quickly. Run, don't walk. In the scene, Kyle tells Sutton, I don't know. This is a torture conversation. Sutton said, it's a torture conversation, but I'm trying to give you like tough love. I just want you to be smart. And then they kind of look at each other, which almost made me think, did y'all plan this conversation? Who knows? Because it would kind of be like Kyle giving us some of her business because, you know, she doesn't always, but then controlling it. I don't know. But then I don't see Sutton planning. I don't know. We don't know. We're at Bose's house and it is beautiful. She's getting stuff out of her fridge and she says, oh, this fridge is full. She has an assistant named Nico. He's cute. She's putting out a fruit platter and putting gold dust on it. And then she says, wait, hold on. Do you think my new friends who I met at the party, Dorit and Erica, you think they'll like gold as much as I like gold? Nico says, I think they like gold. So how do you feel about them? Do you like them? She says, yeah, I thought they were both very nice. He says, first impressions can be deceiving. She says, and I'm not one to be deceived. So then we see Erica and Dorit on their way to Bose's house. Erica says, I'm excited to see Bose's house. For once I have a neighbor. Dorit says, Erica, we hit it off. Her and I just ended up sharing such personal, intimate details inside of 30 minutes of getting to know each other. She's just fun. They pull up to the house and Dorit says, oh, honey. Bose opens the door for them and is excited to see them and asks them to take their shoes off if they didn't mind. They go to the back and she says, I have some slippers for you. And in her confessional, Dorit says, well, if I knew I had to take off the Chanel mules, I may not have worn them because they really are part of the outfit. But for Bose, I'll make an exception. Erica says she loves all the texture in Bose's house, which is her house is beautiful. And Dorit says she loves all the mirrors. So they go out back and Dorit says, oh my gosh. And this is an oasis. Erica says, this is beautiful. So it's her backyard where her pool is. And it looks like a resort with the chairs, seating area. You can lounge, all that. It looks really relaxing and beautiful. So Bose, they all have their wine glasses. Bose says, thank you so much. I'm happy that you came over. Erica says, thank you for having us over. Bose says, not Bo, child, that's how my note says. Bose says, and thank you for accepting the invitation. Dorit says, thank you. And they all cheers. Erica jumps right in and says, so what did you think about the girls? And they laugh. Erica says, let's get down to brass tacks, honey. Bose says, let's get down to the business. Exactly. Erica says, so tell us what you're really thinking. Bose said, girl, look, before the party, um, wait a minute. Oh, Bose says, before the party, I had Sutton over. It was a couple of days before the party. And Bose is asking Sutton, tell me who's coming to the party. Sutton is saying everybody in our group, and she's telling Bose that Kyle and Dorit have a little bit of a beef right now, so it may be awkward. So Bose said, oof. So back at her house, Bose says that the little bit I learned, um, and then she kind of like bites her nails, like telling Dorit the little bit that I did learn about you and Kyle's thing. And she bites her nails. Dorit says, I know. The stuff going on between her and I is also layered. Basically, Kyle sort of isolated me, and months go by. Bose says, so what was she mad at you for? Dorit kind of like shrugs, like looks at her like she doesn't know. So Bose says, what do you mean? Dorit says, I'm kind of getting different answers. She says Kyle keeps changing her mind about what she's mad about. So they go to grievance number one. They show a flashback of the first from the reunion. I think it was last year. And she says that she's upset because Dorit talked about her marriage on camera when they were good friends. Then they put up a second grievance, was at the same reunion. Kyle brings up Dorit saying, I just think Kathy needs some support. Because remember when Dorit said that 2 reunions back when Kyle and Kathy were talking and Dorit was like, I just think, Kathy might need some support too. She was upset about that. And then Kyle had said, I think Dorit said that because she wanted to be on whatever side the audience thinks. So back in her confessional, Dorit says now she's bringing up BravoCon. It feels like she's grasping at straws. Back at Bose's house, Bose says, so what happens now, though? Because at the party, from what I saw, she walked off. Dorit said, well, I think she came into the conversation thinking I can do what I always do with Dorit, which is make her feel bad for me and she'll get over it. I'm not doing that anymore. And that's what I said when she was like, I've had a rough 2 years, blah, 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 blah. She thought Dorit was going to be like, oh, Kyle. But Dorit was like, nah, you still should have talked to me. So we're back with Kyle and Sutton at the hotel, and Sutton saying, now let's talk about Dorit. What happened at the party? Kyle says, I went into this thinking I'm going to stay calm. I want to get my points across and be able to get to the other side of this. She did not come in like that. They show a flashback of Dorit telling Kyle, we're going to have to be really honest. And Kyle says to Sutton, I pulled away from Dorit because I was reacting to the things that she had been doing. I was like, hello, you haven't been a good, I was like, hello, you haven't been a good friend to me. So Sutton says, do you miss her? Kyle says, right now, I feel too angry for that because the girl sitting across from me the other night she wasn't nice. In her confessional, Kyle says, I think right now I'm really dealing with having a lack of trust with Dorit and the fact that she lacks accountability or self-awareness. She seems to be completely oblivious to anyone's feelings but her own. Kyle tells Sutton, you don't get to say how hurt you were and that you felt pushed away when you made that bed. Now you got to lie in it. Sutton said, ooh, okay, as she was grabbing her drink to throw back down her throat. All right, we're back at Boz's house. Dorit is saying, I feel like over the last few years, there's always been this, like it's 2 sets of rules, a set of rules for you and a set of rules for everyone else. In the meantime, Erica was over there taking that champagne today. So Dorit says, or it's a set of rules for you and a set of rules for me. Erica says, quite honestly, I see where both of them are coming from. I see both sides. They both have been going through really hard stuff. Bose says, yes. In our confessional, Erica says, Kyle and Dorit are both going through separations and they are at each other's throats. While PK and Mo are out having like the best time of their lives, we're here fighting in Encino. Like, how does that happen? Erica looks at Dorit and says, which leads me to ask you, how is it going? How is it going with you and your husband? Dorit says, listen, you guys, it's been a very few tumultuous years. Bose says, well, how are you with the kids right now? Do they think, Dorit says they think daddy's working. They think he's staying at a hotel because of work. And Bose says, oh, that's hard. That's hard that you got to keep up that pretense with them. Dorit says, I know, but you know what? Because in the last few years, when PK was drinking, we would get into a fight. He would take off for a few weeks. So I've been telling the kids this. So whenever they would get into a big fight and he would just leave and be gone for weeks at a time, she would tell the kids that he's at work. So basically, that's what the kids think now. Oh, he's staying at a hotel because he's at work. She said that's what they're used to be honest. So their lives are not disrupted that much. That's good that they're not disrupted, but it's also sad, like, dang. In her confessional, Erica says, I'm sorry that Dorit had to suffer like that in silence. That's hard. But then again, I understand not telling anyone anything like that. What are you going to say? Like, what are you going to say? Oh, hey, I've told you guys everything is great when in fact he's not here. So they asked Dorit, are you waiting to see what happens in your marriage? And then are you going to tell the kids? Dorit says, yeah. So Bose asks her, is there a chance for reconciliation? And Dorit just kind of looks at her and then says, there's always that possibility. All right, moving on. We're at Sutton's house, and Avi is defrosting pizza sauce because they were frozen. She bought pizza kits. In her confessional, Sutton says, although Kyle and I have had our ups and downs throughout the years, I know that she needs me as a friend right now. Having been through my own separation and then divorce, it really feels lonely. So I want to be there for her. So they show a day or so before, I'm not sure, it might have been a day, she was in her sauna on FaceTime with Kathy. And she's telling Kathy, I think it would be fun if we did a Kathy surprise. Maybe Erica could come, just kind of have some real fun. Surprising, going over to Kyle's and surprising her. Kathy says, we'll do pizza and PJs. Sutton says, I love pizza and PJs. So Erica then shows up to Sutton's house. Kathy then arrives. Sutton tells the ladies, I thought it would be a nice gesture during this. After I talked to Kyle, she seemed a little down. There's a story that she told me about a picture. And Erica says, a picture of what? Sutton says, because I know Erica was like, I know she ain't find a picture of him and somebody, because I know that's what I would have thought. Sutton says Mauricio replaced a picture of Kyle and him, which they showed, with a picture of him and the woman from Dancing with the Stars. Erica said, where? What are you talking about? Sutton says, in the office in their house. Erica says, what? Are you serious? No, I'm sorry. Erica says, what? And Kathy says, are you serious? In her confessional, Sutton says, I mean, at that point for me, I'm like, bye, Mauricio. But I don't think Kyle did that. I think she was just kind of still hurt and hopeful. Erica says to the ladies, well, that isn't right. Kathy says it would be one thing taking it down, but then to put that up, come on. In her confessional, Erica says, why are you replacing a picture of your wife with your Dancing with the Stars partner? All that's going to do is make people talk more. Now, it would only make them talk more if we knew, if it was brought to camera by Sutton, like it was. That doesn't help. It actually hurts. Then again, Tom had a picture of who he was effing underneath his desk, and there she was. So who am I to judge? You know, it happened to me. Sutton tells the ladies we should probably get on our merry way, and Erica says, yeah, let's hit it. Kyle is at home. She's FaceTiming one of her daughters, Sophia, I believe. And Sophia says she's on her way out to dinner with friends, and she was going to see a movie at iPic. So Kyle's basically like, oh, you're not going to be home. It's going to be her and Portia. She says she'll be home after. So in her confessional, Kyle talks about still adjusting to having a lot quieter of a home. She's not used to that, and she just gets scared. Like, what if it's always like this? So we see Erica, Sutton, and Kathy on their way to the house to surprise Kyle. Erica says, well, how are we going to get through the gate without scaring her? Kathy says, you know what? I'm going to say I've got a delivery. And Erica says, say Amazon. She gets so much stuff from Amazon. Sutton says to Kathy, are you able to disguise your voice? Let me hear you practice. Go. Kathy says, it's got to come from the heart. Erica says, get into character, Kathy. She says, I got to think about my going out being in a brown truck. She says, I got to think about my outfit basically being in a brown truck. And then she says, no, that's UPS. Erica says, whatever. And Sutton laughs. So Sutton says, what's your name? Kathy says, ma'am. So Erica says, we're done. She's not opening up the gate. So then Kathy does a voice saying, I've got a delivery from Amazon. I thought it was pretty good. But in her confessional, Sutton says, I don't know if Kathy went to acting school. In her confessional, Erica says, it was kind of Darth Vader a bit. So they pull up to the gate. Portia's home with Kyle and they're getting dinner. Kathy rings the gate as Kyle is in the house and hears it and says, oh, please don't be a delivery. So she picks up the phone. Hello. So Kathy says, Amazon delivery. Kyle says, what kind is it? FedEx? Kathy says, Amazon. Kyle says, Amazon. Okay, 1 minute, please. I have to put my dogs away. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Kyle goes to look for her dogs. She's counting them, making sure there's Luna, there's River. Oh my gosh, Romeo. Child Romeo then ran out the house. She's chasing Romeo. Kathy gets back in the car with Sutton and Erica and is like, basically, should I buzz again? Sutton says no. Kathy says, I may have to tinkle. So after Kyle chased the dog back in the house, she yells, wait, I forgot about the Amazon guy. Portia says, wait, I don't have shoes on. So then Kyle says to Portia, can you call Jesse to get the Amazon guy to get the gate? The gate opens. The ladies duck in the car. Sutton, Erica, and Kathy. Kyle is in the house. So, and she says, I'm sure the Amazon guy is leaving. Basically, there's no way he's going to wait. So then she says, where's my phone? Kathy rings the doorbell and the ladies hide so she can't see them, I guess, in the ring also. I don't know. Now, it did look like she had a ring. So if she found her phone, she didn't grab her phone and look at the ring to see who was at the door. Like they were able to hide that quick. It doesn't do the perimeter. It only does what's in front of you. Because wouldn't they have been able to see her? Because isn't there a certain circumference? Wouldn't she have been able to see them if she looked at her phone? I don't know. Maybe it's not hooked up. I don't know. All the questions that I have. So Portia says, did someone just knock at the door? One of the dogs barks. Portia says someone's knocking, but I don't see anyone. She then opens the door and the ladies yell surprise. And Kyle's like, oh, it's a surprise. So the ladies come in. Kyle says, guys, what are you doing? Why do you have all that stuff? Erica says, to surprise you, to make you feel better. Kyle says, you guys literally shocked me. So Portia says, I'm going to go upstairs. Kathy says, yeah, hey, guys, I got some pajamas here for you. So the ladies get out of their PJs and proceed to make homemade pizza. Kathy says to Sutton, wait a minute, you don't have gloves on when they were making them. So Sutton flicks something at her. So the ladies go sit down and eat pizza. Kathy says, where's Garcelle? And Sutton says Garcelle's in Atlanta. She's shooting 2 movies. They flash back to a couple nights ago, and I think it might be the same night that Sutton had called Kathy on FaceTime to come up with going to Kyle's house to surprise her. So Garcelle is telling Sutton about the second installment of Black Girl Missing. Sutton says, well, you already lost one Black girl in your family. What kind of mother are you? Because this is part 2. Garcelle says, girl, I swear to God, you're going to be missing soon. And then they laugh. Back in the scene, Kathy says she's busy. Sutton says, yes, but she's coming home this week. So Kyle says, thank you guys. It's so cute that you guys did this. Thank you. Sutton says, we're here for you and we want you to know that. Mauricio has moved out and it's a lot on you. Kyle says, I know. The other day I was looking through my wedding photos and then they show the picture of Mauricio and Kyle on their wedding day. She said, we were so young, 23. And then I started crying. Sutton said, that's okay. Kathy says, I mean, Kyle, you look like you could be his daughter. Kyle looks over at her. Kathy says, he's aged. Erica gives a look like, Kyle says, he looks good. Kathy says, wait. And if y'all are watching me, y'all can see what I'm doing. Kathy says, wait, and then starts doing the motion like she's lifting weights. Kyle says, don't be mean. Kathy says, I'm not being mean, but I'm saying. Sutton gives like a look or a head nod, like no, really quick. Either that or she's shocked. Erica says, well, what does that mean? In her confessional, Kyle says, I think my sister is referencing Mo's Instagram stories where he's in the gym and they show him posing without a shirt on. I remember when that came out. And she says, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Now, I don't know if she's saying she doesn't like Kathy saying what she's saying about Mo or Mo posting himself like that. Kyle tells them, I don't want to do that. It doesn't make me feel good. Child, like making fun of Mauricio. Kathy, with a mouthful of food, says, I thought it would. In her confessional, Kathy says, over the years, we've had our ups and downs with Mo. I've heard from people that he was talking a lot about Hilton and Highland and Rick on his show. We don't discuss him. I would say the only advice I could give him would just be to move on. And they show the headline from Reality Blurb. that says Paris Hilton slams Mauricio Umansky, says family is sick of him and blasting him for using Hilton to promote lame show after he discussed the feud with Rick Hilton on Buying Beverly Hills preview. So remember that he discusses the feud on Buying Beverly Hills? They showed it in the preview, and Paris came out and was basically like, your show is lame. Stop talking about us, my family. Sutton tells the ladies, tells Kyle, I think going forward, you need a poker face. I mean, at least for me, I had a husband who was really, really powerful, and I was like a deer in the headlights. She says to Erica, you probably understand that as well. Erica said, if I did anything, Erica said, I didn't do anything too much. So just prepare. She said something like that, y'all, my notes. Just prepare, that's all. Kathy said, just make sure you're protected because you obviously brought a lot to the table. Kyle says, we only have the utmost respect for each other, even through this process. He sent me flowers on Mother's Day. Sutton says, I used to get flowers for a long time. I haven't gotten flowers for years now. I got nothing, like not even a text this year. Erica says, girl, you got that monthly payment. Relax. So they post a headline from Radar Online that says, exposed, Sutton Strack awarded $350,000 per month and support from ex-husband. She left the marriage with Andy Warhol prints and her couture collection. That was October 27th of 2023 at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, to be precise. Sutton said, that means nothing about the money. Erica said, it means something. As somebody who gets nothing, you at least walked out with something. In her confessional, Kyle says, many people are just used to seeing and hearing about nasty divorces, fighting over custody and money. It's just the norm. I don't think our marriage may be the norm. I don't think our family and what we have and what we built is necessarily the norm. Maybe that's pompous of me. I think she said pompous of me to say, I don't know. I feel like maybe we're a little different. I don't know. So then Kyle's looking at the table and she's like, this is getting on my nerves, seeing it like, this is bothering me, looking at it like this. And so she starts clearing up the table. Erica says, we should be getting out of here. And Sutton says, yeah, we need to be getting out of here. They all hug. Erica leaves out first. Sutton is leaving out last, and she's walking out with Kyle and says, I'm taking my clothes. Because I guess she left in her robe. They walk by the office, and it's the office that has the desk of where the picture was of Kyle and Mauricio, and then he moved it and put it of him and his Dancing with the Stars partner. And when they walk by, Sutton says, oh gosh, does it feel weird? Oh, the desk. Like she sees the desk because the door's open. Kyle says, yeah, it feels weird that my picture was taken down too. Sutton says, well, there's that. Well, on that note, good night. And they say good night. Kyle says, love you. She shut her front door. Then she shut the office door and puts the lock on it. Now, Kyle saying, feels weird that my picture was taken down. Did she know that someone else was going to bring, Sutton brought it to the ladies, which is why I was like, back to when Sutton and Kyle met up at the hotel. Did y'all have a conversation? And Kyle was like, Sutton, you're my friend. You can bring up my marriage, but only in this way. So it could seem like she was giving the audience something, because she didn't know that Sutton brought up the picture being moving, unless Sutton told her off camera. Earlier I told the girls about the picture, because for Kyle to just throw it in there, unless it's going to come up later in the season and Kyle's going to explain, I don't know. Last scene of the episode, Dorit and PK meet for dinner. PK arrives first. In her confessional, Dorit says, PK and I announced our separation publicly a few days ago, and since then, she hasn't seen him. He went straight into a hotel, and luckily we're still communicating. So we see PK ordering a non-alcoholic beer, some bread, and some shoestring fries. I said, that's the best. I would have had a margarita, some fries. Margarita on the rocks with a sugar rim. Yep. Dorit says in her confessional, there's a lot of things we need to discuss. So I thought it was best for us to have dinner, have a nice meal, relax, and kind of start figuring out together how we navigate this new situation. The waiter asks if she wants something from the bar, and Dorit says, PK. Well, so Dorit comes in, they hug. The waiter asks them, do they want something from the bar? Dorit says, PK, you're okay with me having a drink, right? So she orders, the Belvedere, I believe, club soda, 2 lemons, and then a carcass out or something like that, y'all. So PK asked her, how do you like this new jacket? So Dorit says, oh, so you went out and bought a whole new load of clothes. PK says, oh, yeah, look, gets out of his seat, mouth full of shoestring fries, and says, this is single PK. Now, y'all just announced. Now, I was going to say they did just announce the separation a couple of days ago, but that doesn't mean that they weren't separated for longer than that, right? In her confessional, Dorit says, I don't know if PK realizes that saying single PK is as hurtful as it is. So back at the table, PK says, look at me. I'm sitting here eating, even though I'm kind of skinny for me at the moment. I believe that's what he said because again, he had a mouthful of bread at this point. And Dorit says, not if you keep eating like this. In her confessional, she says, I don't really know how he goes from married and committed to separated and single PK, 24 to 48 hours. It feels like, whoa. So Dorit says to PK, how do you feel tonight? PK says he's edgy. He feels edgy. Dorit says, you do? He says, yeah, I feel edgy. You know, I didn't know how bad I had this disease. The drinking is a symptom, not a cause. But you know, I'm very clear now why we've made our decision. While we've done what we've done, I'm really clear on it. Let me explain it to you this way. You're my best friend and you're my wife, and we don't speak to each other nicely. If the server came over and we spoke to the server how we speak to each other, we'd be thrown out of this restaurant. I said, well, what do y'all be saying to each other? For you to be thrown out, I need to know what y'all be saying. Then again, maybe I don't need to know what they be saying. So he says, as of late, it's like we don't like each other. I don't question the love, but we stop liking each other. Dorit says, do you feel like you don't like me? And PK says, well, he's thinking when she says that, you know, do you feel like you don't like me? And PK's thinking, and he said, when you talk to me a certain way and when you make me feel a certain way, and Dorit interrupts and says, no, that's not what I asked. PK said, there are times I don't like you. Correct. Hold on, y'all. Let me pause this for a minute. I'm back, y'all. That was my mom. She was like, don't, are you going to this? You got to go to the store. Basically, wait till she get here so we can go to the store. So she can get her some 7-Eleven coffee, child. She love 7-Eleven coffee because she's in Jersey, so it's the Wawa. But anyway, so again, PK says, Dorit says, do you not like me sometimes? PK is thinking, and he says, when you talk to me a certain way, you make me feel a certain way. Dorit interrupts and says, that's not what I asked. PK says, there are times I don't like you, correct. And I don't want to ever not like you. Dorit says, this is something. Dorit says, this is something where, again, I just want to understand, PK. So PK says, I think I made the biggest change that you wanted. Your biggest change you wanted me to make was to stop drinking, and I did. Dorit said, and you don't think I made any changes? PK says, no, I don't think you made any changes to discussions and arguments. Child. He said, I think you go very low very quickly. I think you know my touch points, and you have no problem if you're annoyed going there. In her confessional, Dorit says, the progression of mine and PK's fighting, and this is where it really becomes too toxic, was that we went from just screaming at one another, but not using profanity, to cursing at one another, to actually having digs that were below the belt. Oh, I hope you rot in hell. I hope you're alone for the rest of your life. You're going to fall down off your chair drunk because you're nothing but a blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, they really? Okay. Okay. She said really ugly, gross things. Dorit says to PK, when you get into a mood and you're angry, you cannot snap out of it, PK. So PK says, okay, we got deep-rooted resentments that we built up as a result of what life has thrown at us. You were number one. You know, basically, you were my number one. I was your number one. Dorit says, this is what I'm trying to get to. PK says, and what I learned from our marriage is that even above the kids in a real marriage, spouses come first, right? You were very socially vibrant, busy, always with me, and you're not that anymore. So Dorit looks a little taken aback. PK says, the reality is you came to me a very, very different girl. And I was like, okay. It's interesting how the men feel like have a problem with their wives evolving. I mean, I know some people may say, well, the way you started out your relationship is how it should be. And I get that to an extent. But I mean, it's one thing if you used to care about how you look, but now you just are sloppy, not even on top of your game, but just sloppy. You don't shower, all that. That's one thing. But I mean, she had kids. So no, she may not want to be out gallivanting every night, being the Bonnie to your Clyde. But anyway, so he says, you were very socially vibrant, always with me, and you're not that anymore. You came to me a very, very different girl. It was me that was the global entrepreneur. It was me that had built the businesses. It was me that brought you with me, and you made me feel less than. You made me feel less than so many times. So many times. I've told you this. Dorit says, I've never heard it like you said it tonight. PK says, right. Dorit says, I've heard it screaming. I've heard you upset saying it, basically. I've heard you say, I'm a man. I've heard you say it angry, but I've never heard you say it to me like you said it tonight. And she said, you know, me making you feel like less than, which is the last thing in the world I would want to do for you. I've never felt that way about you. PK says, you're my family. You're the mother of my kids. I said, oh, I know where this is going. PK is done. He said, you're the mother of my your family. You're the mother of my kids. That's the way it's going to be until I die. We have to give each other space, of course, but it doesn't mean if you're in effing need or I'm in need, you can't call me, right? And vice versa. Dorit says, PK, we're talking like 5 times a day. PK says, I know, but we're not going to. Dorit looked at him like, excuse me? He says, we're not going to talk 5 times a day. So then Dorit says, we're not going to talk 5 times a day. I don't understand. PK sat back in that seat in that booth. He says the codependency is what we have to break. I want us both to remain committed, but I want to give you the space basically to listen. And so so Dorit is like, listen, like trying to say something. And he's saying, break the codependency. She don't like that. She says, I heard that part. PK says, all right, let's go. I was like, did they edit? Like, because it was very much like she's trying to say something like, I heard that part. And he's like, okay, let's go. In her confessional, Dorit says, I guess we've been talking and being so friendly. I thought we could navigate this together. As they're leaving, PK says to Dorit, okay, you've got the driver, right? She says, yeah. Back in her confessional, she says, but after hearing PK's frustration, I don't know where we go next. So then he says to her, shall we go outside? Shall they go outside? She gives him a side hug, a little bit more than a church hug, but way less than a spouse hug. And they mate, gives him a kiss on the cheek and says, thanks, honey. And they say, bye. And scene. It's over. It's a wrap on that conversation. A part of me was wondering, like, okay, are they doing it for the plot, for the check too? But I feel like PK is out here. I'm living my best life. Like, he ain't going back and forth with you, Dorit. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. If y'all watched the episode, did y'all enjoy this episode? I know it's only episode 2, and it may not have been shock or chock full of drama, but y'all know I've said it before. I don't need every episode to be on a 10. It's a lot for me. My stomach be in knots. I don't mind these 1s and 2s. Y'all let me know, whose side are you on specifically in the Dorit and Kyle of it all? Or are you like Erica and can see both sides just based on what we see, what we're seeing on the screen play out? And do y'all think Dorit and PK are done? And PK is like, na, 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 na. Hey, 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 goodbye. He's out about to find him another Bonnie, honey. This next Bonnie better be careful, because didn't Bonnie and Clyde, like, they robbed and took things that didn't belong to them? And don't PK owe a lot of money, or still owe a lot of money, or I don't know. Allegedly. Anyway, y'all, I will talk to y'all later. I hope y'all have again, if you celebrate, a wonderful Thanksgiving full of good food, good conversation. Don't let your family take you to another level. Don't let your family talk about your weight, your hair, your kids, your cooking. Well, I mean, if the cooking ain't good, none of that. Listen, if one of your aunties or uncles or cousins or family friends looks at you and talks about your weight, whether they say you're too skinny or you're too big, and they're big, just ask them, when's the last time you were able to look straight down and see your feet? without an obstruction in the way. Like your gut. All right, y'all. Love y'all so much. I'm just kidding, kind of, sort of. Talk to y'all later. See ya.